Welcome back. Today we're starting to look at our first stage, which is forming within groups. Again, if you haven't seen the first couple of videos, I strongly encourage you to watch those. They are foundational to the rest. That you just need to watch them. There's some basic information I'm not going to cover again here that I think will be worthy of your time. So today we're looking at forming within groups. Some people call it joining, beginning to be a member of a group, and some of the specific significances and some helpful strategies for forming within our groups. Again, groups being defined as families, co-workers, neighborhoods, social groups, anything where individuals come together toward a shared goal or several goals. Let's take a look at some specifics now. Some of the significance of forming is at least two things, a positive and a negative: shared interest, but also uncertainty. That's the reason that we form a group, because we have a shared interest. We want to live in the same place. We want to work at the same office space that they do, or at least we have a similar need for a certain salary, or we have the same goals in mind, and so we get married because of the goals that we share. But along with that shared interest that we have, there's still uncertainty, because we are just beginning to be a part of that group. Who are you to me? Who do you think I am? Will you value me? Will you attack me? Will you accept me? Will we get along? How long will I be a part of this group? Is this going to be an easy ride? Is it going to be a hard ride? Lots and lots of unknowns. There's really only a couple of knowns. We have this shared thing in common that makes us a group, and unless you know some members of the group, there's a lot of unknowns. Even if you do know some members of the group, you may not know them in the context of this particular group. Maybe you've known them in the past as a friend, but you've never worked with them before. You may see a very different side of your friend. Maybe you've worked together before, but now you're in a social setting with this person. Again, you may see a very different side of this person. So lots and lots of unknowns. Therefore, it can be helpful to consider both of these in any of your new roles in your neighborhood, family, work, social group. What I'm saying is reflect back on the time when you were first coming into your neighborhood. You had first become a parent. You were just starting in your job, and think back to what that was like for you. There was some excitement, but there was also some nervousness. There was some clear understanding, but in a very limited way, this is what we have in common, and there were a lot of other unknowns. When you can have some clear recollection of those things, it's easier for you to have empathy with somebody else who is new to your group, somebody who just moved in, somebody who is new down the hall at your workspace, somebody who just joined your team, somebody who is one of your new in-laws. Maybe it's the first time for them to be new in this group, but you've been there before. And if you can reflect back on what it was like for you, it will be easier for you to welcome them, to anticipate some of their needs, and to help them feel a sense of belonging toward that same shared goal. That is critical, because this is a first impression. Remember, we can't have a second first impression. So remembering what it was like for us can be very powerful to making the stage for others in the group, that formation stage, to go more smoothly. Some specific strategies must recognize, enable, and as appropriate, reward both of these things. In other words, it should recognize and reward the shared goal. And it should at least recognize and validate their sense of uncertainty. So any strategy that we have should do both. Build the positive and validate and assuage or mitigate the negative to make it easier for them to feel a part. Let's look at some specifics here. For one, we need to clearly communicate and celebrate the positive goal of the group. When you're first coming together, we may assume that everybody knows why we're there, but assumptions are not always realities. So to clearly state what is the purpose of this group. If you're new in a neighborhood, if people are very private, it might not be very clear what the purpose of that neighborhood is. but you can look around at some of the yards and tell. Are people very reclusive? What do the yards look like? How do they interact with each other? Are there some common decorations or themes about their interests? Where do they tend to work? What do they do? That'll give you some idea of what they expect out of somebody who is new in that neighborhood. Same thing at a job. You may work at a job and the vision statement or the mission statement is printed right there on the wall. But there may be some aspects of that that are emphasized more heavily than others. It could be that some subgroups within that larger organization are working slightly off center to that vision or mission because of their immediate supervisor. It could be that some are working contrary to the vision and mission because they don't have clear guidance from their supervisors and they're allowed to do what they want to do. So we need to clearly communicate and celebrate positive movement toward the goal. That will help everybody to realize, yes, this is why we're here, and in fact we are moving toward that shared interest. Here's another strategy. Welcome individuals and ask to understand them both as a person and as a member of the group. Remember that people are more than functions within the group. They're a personality. They have a history. They have hopes and hurts. As appropriate, and it really depends on the nature of the group. Are you coming together for a week toward a particular task? Do you know you're going to be working there for a year and then moving on? Are you living in a apartment complex where people just kind of come and go because they really sleep there and that's all they do? It depends on the nature of the group, but as appropriate, get to know them as individuals, because then they will see that you respect them as a human being and not just as a cog within the wheel of a machine. But you also want to get to know them as a member of the group. What do they bring to the table? What are their strengths? What are their deficits or weak points? How do they need you to help them? How might they be able to help you? That's letting them know that you want them to succeed as a member of the group. Again, whether they're a new family member or a brand new colleague or anybody else, that you're communicating to each other why you're there, why you are there, both of you, and how you can be helpful to each other as whether they're a new member or you're a new member of that group. A third strategy. Regularly check individuals and subgroups' sense of relational inclusion. Do they trust each other? Do they know that each other has one another's back? Is that stated but not lived? Are they experiencing that they belong? You can check this formally, you can check it informally, you can check it on a scheduled basis, you can check it spontaneously. There are many ways you can check it, just body language, casual conversation. There's lots of ways that you can discern this, but we need to discern it. It's not enough to say, okay, this needs to happen. People need to feel included. People need to be respected and have a sense of belonging. We need to find out if that's really going on. And if you haven't already guessed, the stage of formation can go on a long time. It can be very quick and immediately move into storming, or it can be very long. It depends on the personalities, it depends on the nature of the group, it depends on many, many things. We need to check the individual's sense of belonging and the group's, subgroup's sense of belonging, because if they don't strongly believe that they belong, they'll never really effectively move beyond forming and storming, because the trust won't be there. They'll feel like an outsider and they'll function like an outsider. That means they will lose, that means the group will lose. One last strategy is similar but different. We need to regularly check individuals and subgroups' sense of functional progress. Are they as an individual making progress in their goal? Is the group as a whole or the subgroup as a whole making progress toward the goal? It's not enough just for the group to make progress, because if some are being left behind, they're struggling to keep up, the whole group is going to suffer. If individuals are sprinting ahead in their progress, but the group is lagging behind, they're necessarily becoming detached from the group, and again the group is going to suffer. Communications are going to be weaker. Trust and mutual helps are going to be strained. So we need to check both of these on a regular basis: relational trust and inclusion and functional progress. All these are part of forming, which is the first stage of group formations. But again, we are always in different stages because we belong to different groups in our lives. Next week we'll cover the next stage, but that doesn't mean that formations are over. They're still going on in your life in other places. Hope to see you next week for the next video in the series.